måske.
Ja.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from the press. Minister Vivian Motzfeldt and I met with Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio today. We came here following a number of, how should I put it, remarkable public comments on Greenland and Arctic security. Our aim was to find a joint way forward to increase Arctic security. What can the Kingdom of Denmark do more? What can US do more? What can NATO do more? The Kingdom of Denmark has already stepped up our own contribution by committing additional funds for military capabilities, not dock slates, but ships, drones, fighter jets, etc. And we are definitely ready to do more. The US has already a wide military access to Greenland. Under the 1951 Defense Agreement, the US can always ask for increasing its presence in Greenland, and therefore we wish to hear if the US had any further requests to make in this aspect. We would examine any such request constructively. Greenland is, through the Kingdom of Denmark, a member of NATO and has been that since the very founding of NATO in 1949 and is therefore also covered by Article 5. We have been pushing for quite a while in NATO for a stronger collective role in Greenland together with a number of allies, and we are eager to work with the US on advancing this agenda, and we are prepared to go further. Therefore, our aim was to find a common understanding on all these points and to launch, if possible, further in-depth work to deliver on them. On this basis, we had what I will describe as a frank but also constructive discussion. The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position. We, the Kingdom of Denmark, continue to believe that also the long-term security of Greenland can be ensured inside the current framework, the 1951 Agreement on the Defence of Greenland, as well as the NATO Treaty. For us, ideas that would not respect territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the right of self-determination of the Greenlandic people are, of course, totally unacceptable. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree. And therefore we will, however, continue to talk. We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward. The group, in our view, should focus on how to address the American security concerns, while at the same time respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. We expect that such a group will meet for a first time within a matter of weeks. And then I will pass the floor to my colleague from Greenland, Vivian Motzfeldt.
Thank you so much. Not repeating what already been said here, so I would like to say something in my own language, because there are many people in Greenland that follows, and for that I hope that you will allow me. So asasakka nunaqatikka naringiraarta masmarinnaasusi ulloq uatsinnut pissanganarsimawoq oqaatigilagani ullumik ataatimiineq ingerlalluarsimammat aamalu inimi ataatimiiffigisatsinni атаққиқатигиинеқ ааллаавигалугу оқалеқатигиинери ингерланнеқарсимаммата массаккуллу сиуму саммисимик оқалеқатигиинерит ингерлаққиннissaанут аққутиник уярлеқатигииниссатсиннут исимақатигиисималлута. I think that our meeting today and our commitment to find the right path is something that gives us to be able to see forward. And by saying that, I also committed on what Minister Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen already said. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And then I think we can take a few questions. Tom from BBC. Yes.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Just first of all, you talked about the working group. Can you just give us a sense of what this means now? So what has actually been agreed you're going to do next, despite this, as you described it, fundamental disagreement? And you mentioned the dog slaves. In terms of what you've announced in terms of beefing up security in the Arctic around Greenland, when you hear that kind of language from President Trump about amounting to end to dog slaves, how does that make you feel?
Well, that's actually quite a few questions at the same time. Well, I have known the president for quite a while, also in my former capacity as Prime Minister in Denmark, and I know his approach. But I must say, and even though he addressed things quite differently from what I would have done myself, there's also always a bit of truth in what he's saying, not about the dog slaves. Well, we also have dog slaves to our special forces. That's the way to, otherwise you couldn't come around in the northern part of Greenland. But I must say that, of course, we share to some extent his concerns. There is definitely a new security situation in the Arctic and the high north. All of us, transatlantic, took the peace dividend years ago. And we have the vision of keeping Arctic as a low-tension region. That's probably also why U.S. themselves have decided to have a much softer footprint in Greenland. During the Cold War, at some stage, they had 17 different military installations and military bases. Now they only have one. They had like 10,000 personnel in Greenland. Now they have around 200. That's not our decision. That's a U.S. decision. And now the situation is entirely different. And of course, we have to respond to this. The big difference is whether that must lead to a situation where U.S. acquire Greenland, and that is absolutely not necessary. I mean, we have the long-lasting diplomatic relation, the longest-lasting diplomatic relation with U.S. that any U.S. ally has, 225 years in a row. And we have a perfect framework which could be used. And therefore, to answer your question, even though we wasn't so successful that we reached, a conclusion where our American colleagues said, "Oh, sorry, it was totally misunderstanding. We gave up on our ambitions." There's clearly a disagreement. We agreed that it makes sense to try to sit down on a high level to explore whether there is possibilities to accommodate the concerns of the president, while we at the same time respect the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. So this is the work we will start. Whether that is doable, I don't know. I hope, and I would like to express that it could take, down the temperature. We have now had like 13 months with this ongoing discussions in social media, and this is actually the very first time where we could sit down at a top political level to discuss it. And it was a great opportunity also for Vivian and I to go up against the narrative, because it is not a true narrative that we have, Chinese warships all around the place. According to our intelligence, we haven't had a Chinese warship in Greenland for a decade or so. So from that perspective, it was a very constructive meeting. As I said, frank discussion among equal partners, and now at least we have to give it a try. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think it's very important to say it again, that how important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States, but that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by United States, but as allies, how we can strengthen our cooperation, it's all our interest.
Yes, Kim?
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, I would like to ask this question in Danish, but let me do it in English here
Yes.
because of our colleagues here. Do you see any compromise ahead of you? You said it a little bit. Could you elaborate a little on the possible compromise that there would be between the president's wish to acquire Greenland or have control of Greenland and the red lines that the Kingdom of Denmark has gotten right now? And if you also can tell us just a little bit about the approach that the Americans had to this meeting. What was their primary goal, as you see it? Was that to reach that end goal, or was it an open discussion of how do we solve the security situation in the Arctic?
Well, first of all, I don't think this is the proper place to elaborate on what could be a compromise. The whole idea and the reason why we asked for this meeting was to turn public debate in a very, black and white kind of setting into a discussion where there's room for nuances. And therefore, I'm pleased, even though we do not agree whether this is doable, while we at the same time should respect the Kingdom's red lines, at least it is productive to start discussions at a high level. And then we have to see whether we'll be successful or not. I would say, and that is probably in comparison to some of the public debate, that the meeting took place in a very constructive atmosphere, where we also had, as I said, the opportunity to at least challenge the narrative presented by the American president. And I think that is a necessity if we want to have a proper debate. It was basically about security. I mean, and as I said, even though there's not an instant threat from China and Russia, at least not a threat we can't accommodate. For instance, Chinese investments, we have avoided that due to close cooperation between Greenland and Denmark. When you saw, like 10 years ago, the Belt and Road Initiative and the idea of Chinese investments in infrastructure in Greenland, we avoided that. So there's no, Chinese presence in Greenland. But there's a concern. Will that be the case in like a 10 or 20 years from now? It will not, because our Greenlandic friends have introduced investment screening schemes, etc. And Denmark, is by all means on the right side of history. And therefore we will also continue to do what we already have done. We have been stepping up. We have allocated almost $15 billion within just the last couple of years to capabilities in the high north. We have been pushing among the Arctic NATO states for a bigger NATO engagement. Honestly speaking, and now I can only point fingers at the former American administration, US has historically been a bit reluctant. Hopefully that will change now. There's a dialogue within the NATO framework, and we want to step up, and hopefully that could also accommodate some of the president's concern. But it's not that I'm now, saying everything is solved. It's not solved. We didn't manage, but I honestly speaking, I didn't believe that was doable. We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom. There's a government in Greenland with support from 3/4 of the Greenlandic population. The premier made it very, very clear yesterday that Greenland, for the time being and for foreseeable future, will remain within the kingdom of Denmark. And therefore, this is a common position that we want to work with our American friends and allies, but it must be respectful cooperation, and it must respect the red lines. Should we take a very final question and then, yeah, come on. There's a fight going on now about, okay, yes.
I would also like to, of course, ask a question in Danish.
We can do that afterwards. Yeah.
Both of you. So you say you have had a constructive meeting. You said in Greenlandic, I could hear the translation, it was a good meeting. But how do you feel about going out of that room without the threat being off the table? So we still have the American administration that wants to have Greenland being part of the United States. And you say, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, that, well, we hope that we can find a way. But how do you actually feel? It can't be very sort of secure in this sense.
Vivian?
I think that it's never been so important to initiate that we are allies, we are friends, we have been cooperated in many years, we have history together, so it's all our interest to find the right balances. So I don't think I can say it longer than that. Of course, we have work to do in the future, and for us the most important is that you find the normalized relationship we used to have, and it's very important. And I think that we have initiated so many times where we stand and our geopolitical and location and everything that is very important, and we do it as an ally, and we do it of course it's also our interest that Greenland's positions and how we do it that you do it on behalf of the allies, and yes.
Yeah, that will be the final question. That will be the final question.
Mark Stone from Sky News. Can I just ask you, Greg, about the emotion of this moment? What did the administration, what did Trump's team say to you when you presumably told them that you can't just take over a people, you can't just take over and acquire a nation? Was there any discussion about, did they appreciate that perspective, or for them is this simply about security?
I think that what we have been saying, that the meeting is been on a respect way, and we have shown where our limits are, and from there I think that it will be very good to look forward, and this high level group that is going to work together. As I'm already saying, that it's all our interest to find the right path. It's all according to the security in Northern Hemisphere. So I don't want to say more than what we discussed in the closed meeting room, but I would like to have this. How do you say it in English? Hope for a more mutual understanding and trying to find the right balances is equally from all countries.
It is, of course, very emotional for all of us, and of course particularly for people living up in Greenland, but also for people in Denmark. We have 17,000 Greenlandic people living in Denmark. It sums up to like 1/3 of the Greenlandic population. We have a lot of Danes living in Greenland, more than 1 out of 10, which just emphasize that Denmark and Greenland are, integrated, and it has been that for centuries. And we look at ourselves as U.S. closest allies. I've had this discussion with the president previously. In Afghanistan we had exactly as many casualties as U.S. And I know very well that, the future is not necessarily about the past, but I think it is important also to have the past in mind. And we are eager to fulfill our promises. And even though our view on the situation right now around Greenland differs from public statements in the U.S., we share the concerns in a long-time perspective. And we want to work closely with the U.S., but it must, of course, be a respectful kind of cooperation. And we both took the opportunity, of course, also to express that it is not easy to think innovative about solutions when you wake up every morning to different threats. Whether that will have an impact, I can't say for sure, but I can only say that it is in everybody's interest, even though we disagree, to accommodate some of the concerns while at the same time respecting the integrity of the Danish kingdom's territory and the self-determination of the Greenlandic people. Thank you.
How concerned are you that Trump will try to take Greenland by force?
On Saturday, we'll have live coverage of the inauguration of Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, along with Lieutenant Governor-elect Ghazala Hashmi and Attorney General-elect Jay Jones. From Richmond, Virginia, watch live at 12 p.m. Eastern on C-SPAN. C-SPAN Now, our free mobile app, and online at cspan.org.
Watch America's Book Club, C-SPAN's Bold original series. Sunday with our guest Pulitzer Prize winner and former U.S. Poet Laureate Rita Dove, who has authored several collections of poetry.
Don't think you can forget her. Don't even try. She's not going to budge. No choice but to grant her space, crown her with sky, for she is one of the many, and she is each of us.
She joins our host, renowned author and civic leader David Rubenstein.
Did your teachers say, well, look, poetry's not a big career future, you should write prose? Did people tell you that or not?
You see, I didn't even know that it was something that you could do and live with your life. I thought that, and I was writing poetry from the age of 10, I guess, but it was always a secret thing. It was a thing that I wrote and thought, okay, this is my secret. It was my thing that I enjoyed. I didn't realize that a little black girl could become a poet.
Watch America's Book Club with Rita Dove, Sunday at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, only on C-SPAN.
The Senate today is slated to vote on a war powers resolution that would block President Trump from further action in Venezuela without congressional approval. Joining us from Capitol Hill is Anthony Adragna, who is a defense reporter for Punchbowl News. Anthony Adragna, what the Senate will vote first on advancing to this resolution. Why is that?
It's a complicated procedural process here. We're about to kick off what is known as the vote-a-rama process, where senators could, in theory, offer unlimited amendments. What we've heard throughout this week is that there's not a ton of interest in doing that. People don't want to draw out this process. They've obviously got a minibus to consider on the floor as well. But we could kick off what could be an extended process in theory with this.
They will vote to advance the legislation, and as you said, then that kicks off how many hours of debate and this vote-a-rama. Explain to our viewers how that will work, and what are you expecting?
Right. So in theory, there could be up to 10 hours of debate on the resolution once we're formally on it, followed by a vote-a-rama in which senators are allowed to offer amendments on anything germane to the resolution. Now, there's dispute about what that could entail. However, before we get to that, I think there's going to be an effort to try to kill this resolution altogether. Republicans are going to argue essentially that there's no active troop presence here on the ground in Venezuela. They're going to try to win out some of the 5 Republicans who voted with Democrats last week to advance the resolution. If they're successful in making that case, we could see the debate cut off right then and there.
What do you mean by that? Cut off at the point when they try to advance it in the first vote, or during the amendment process?
I guess I'm not entirely sure about when this point of order would be raised, but Republicans would try to raise it and essentially forestall the furthering of this process. Again, they've got 5 Republicans that held out last week. The president has singled them out by name, and so they're trying, both administration officials and Republican leadership are trying really hard to pick off 2 of them, flip their votes, and try to, short-circuit this whole process altogether.
Let's talk about those 5. Who are they?
So it's Senator Rand Paul. He's one of the co-sponsors of the resolution. He's joined by Senator Murkowski, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, who's voted, with Democrats previously on war powers resolutions, and then Senator Susan Collins of Maine, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, and Senator Todd Young of Indiana. Now, we just heard my colleague Andrew Desiderio reported that Senator Hawley is inclined to join with his party in voting for this point of order. So that would mean that Republicans have flipped back one of those votes. They would need just one more, in theory, to, again, short-circuit this process and stop the resolution in its tracks.
So of those 4 remaining Republican senators, who are you watching that could potentially go back on how they voted last week and side with the president?
Well, again, Senator Murkowski and Senator Paul have voted with Democrats before in prior iterations here. So I think they're pretty much off the books. We talked to Senator Collins yesterday. She said her position is unchanged despite the president's pressure. So I think it really does come down to Senator Young. He's been pretty circumspect with his comments that he's offered on this process. But he did tell us yesterday that he really did, he thought it was important to vote procedurally to advance this resolution. He thought the debate was important, but he's definitely going to be the vote to watch here on the floor. I would also just mention Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. He's a Democrat, but he's expressed vocal support for the president's actions in Venezuela. He did side with his party to advance the resolution last week, but he remains sort of a wild card on final passage. We'll have to see what he does here.
What could happen on final passage then with the vote total? Because it is a resolution, meaning they only need a simple majority, right?
Right, so a 50-50 vote would fail. So again, if you take Senator Hawley back, back with the rest of his party, then you would just need one more vote for this thing to fail on the floor. So again, all eyes are going to fall on Fetterman and Young, I think in particular, with Senators Collins, Murkowski, and Paul also worth watching.
What has Senator Hawley said about his decision to now being open to sticking with the administration's stance on Venezuela?
He expressed the most concern with the idea of U.S. troops being present in Venezuela going forward in the future. There was a letter that Punchbowl News obtained this morning from Secretary of State Rubio, I guess writing in his capacity as the National Security Advisor. He has a lot of jobs right now. But again, sort of reiterating the position that there are no troops on the ground right now, and they're not expecting them to be there forward. That's an attempt to sort of allay some of these concerns of senators. Again, they're hoping to convince not just Senator Hawley, but hopefully an additional vote or two. We'll see if they're successful, but that was a letter that just came out this morning ahead of the vote, and will be really important as Republicans decide, try to curtail these votes, these defections from going forward.
Who are the senators pushing for this resolution?
Senators pushing for this resolution would be Senator Tim Kaine has been a leading voice along with Senator Schumer and Adam Schiff of California. And then, as I mentioned, Senator Paul has been a co-sponsor of these war powers resolutions. He views the executive as needing to come to Congress, and the expansionism and military expeditions abroad is going too far. So he's been kind of an outspoken, pretty lone voice from the Republican Party in a lot of these issues to date.
Do we know timing of final passage, the vote on final passage?
I wish we did. We're expecting the resolution to be taken up again late afternoon, Wednesday here in the Senate. And but then, it depends on how long the debate process is drawn out, how many amendments are offered. As I mentioned, Senator Kaine said he didn't anticipate many Democratic amendments, but we'll have to see if that's borne out once this does hit the floor. And then, there's a lot of genuine floor drama and uncertainty going into final passage. That's pretty unusual in 2026 on the Senate in particular. So it'll be a really interesting vote to watch once we do get to final passage, if we get there.
Anthony Dragna, do you expect we see other war powers resolutions dealing with other countries than Venezuela?
I do. Senator Kaine has indicated that depending on how the administration takes action against Iran, that would be a natural next target for a war powers resolution. There's also talk of offering one on Greenland, depending on what the administration opts to do there as well. President Trump has also spoken out about the possibility of actions in